Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm a University of Georgia student, and last spring I went on the Discover Abroad spring semester study abroad trip. And it's an amazing trip, and people are always asking me questions about it, and I've talked to a lot of potential students who are interested either in going on the spring semester or the May semester trip. And I know when I was going on the trip, I was looking for candid info on YouTube, stuff that couldn't be found on the Discover Abroad website, and I couldn't really find that information. So I just thought I would make this informal Q&A video to hopefully answer some of your questions if you're going on the trip or if you're interested on going on the trip. So I guess the first thing is, what is Discover Abroad? So Discover Abroad is a UGA travel-based study abroad trip. So you're going to be traveling every 3 to 4 days and living out of a suitcase. It's super fun. The trip goes a few different places, but the main places that it goes are Fiji, Hawaii, New Zealand, and Australia. And depending on what time of year you go on the trip or what program you choose, there might be a variation of some of those places, but that's just kind of the general overview. So there's different sessions. So there's the spring semester session that's about 2.5 months. That's what I went on. There's a May semester. There's a lot of people that go on the May semester trip. There's a June semester trip, and there's also a winter break trip. And the fun thing about going in the spring or in the winter is that you're in the southern hemisphere. So it was winter here, but it was summer there. So that was really fun. So basically, specific info about the spring semester trip I went on. So you're gonna leave middle of January, and you're gonna get back at the beginning of April. So I spent my first 8 days in Hawaii. We went to the big island of Hawaii and into Honolulu, and then we fly to New Zealand, and we're there for 3 weeks. You start down in the South Island, and then you move all the way up through the North Island, and then you have a week of spring break. Spring break, you can pretty much do whatever you want. I was in Australia and the Gold Coast for that week, and then as the full program rejoins in Sydney, and then you're going to kind of go up the eastern coast of Australia. You're going to be doing that for 3 weeks, and then your final 8 days are in Fiji, and then you will come back to the US if you want to. So you can go on this trip as both a UGA student and as a transfer student. So I went as a UGA student. On my trip, I would say there were 30 of us total that were traveling together, and about maybe 22 were from UGA, and the other 8 were transfer students that went to other schools. So if you're a non-UGA student and you want to go, definitely look into it. Don't be discouraged. And even most of us, almost all of us actually, who went from UGA, we didn't know each other before. So it's not like if you don't go to UGA, you're going to think, oh, everyone else already knows each other, because that's definitely not true at all. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so if you're going even if you don't live in the state of Georgia, you're gonna be paying in-state tuition regardless, so that's really nice. And I know for a lot of transfer students, the credits they got were pass-fail credits. That would depend on your school, but for a lot of them, they wouldn't get like an A or B or C. It would just be a pass-fail grade, so that's kind of nice. So, okay, I kind of realized I didn't lay this out before. So since this is a travel-based trip and you're moving every few days, you are gonna be with the same people pretty much the whole time. And you can, obviously on spring break, you can break off and go off on your own or go off with a smaller group of people, but there were 30 people on my trip, and we were together all the time. And you have your professors that travel with you. So some professors started with us and ended with us, or were in the middle, and then you normally had someone who was kind of, I don't want to say chaperone, because you can go out and do what you want, but they're kind of there to help guide you from one place to the next, I would say, and they were great. So I decided to go on this trip last year when I was a freshman, which is definitely a little early for study abroad, but there were multiple reasons why I decided to go on the trip, such as I was in a dorm, so it was really easy for me just to cancel my contract, and everything that I was paying for to go on the trip anyways, I would have been paying for a dorm regardless, or a meal plan, so kind of got to replace those fees, which helped with the payment of the trip. That definitely helped a lot, and it was something that I just knew I wanted to do in high school. Like when I decided I was going to UGA, I knew I wanted to go on this trip, so I just wanted to go ahead and do it. There's a diverse age across the trip. So if you're a freshman or if you're a senior, don't be like, oh, no one there's gonna be my age. There were 4 freshmen and 3 seniors, and then pretty much everyone else was a sophomore or a junior. And also when you're on the trip, no one cares about your age. I mean, it's not like all the seniors hung out together and the freshmen hung out together. It really doesn't matter at all. I just wanted to preface it by saying that. I also want to talk about when the trips normally fill up. So when you apply to go on the trip, I applied, if you apply in the summer, this is spring semester specific as well. Maymester is more popular, so it definitely fills up sooner normally. And I think for Maymester, they review the applications around now, so around September, October. But normally if you apply in the summer, you're pretty early. I applied July, so I was a pretty early application, but there were definitely people on my trip who applied before me. I'd say August, September was usually around when most people applied at the beginning of the semester. And if you're October, you're kind of late, but if there's still spots open, they might be available for you, or you could be put on a wait list. I know some people do get off of that and get to go on the trip, but definitely the earlier you apply, the better. I also want to talk about how much the trip costs. So at the time I was going on the trip, basically you pay a fee of $7,000 to go on the trip, and this doesn't include tuition or airfare. You pay those fees on top. So with tuition, I am a UGA or a Georgia resident, and I had the Zell Miller scholarship. So if you have Zell or Hope, that covers your tuition regardless. So I don't pay for tuition at all anyway, so I didn't have to pay for it for the trip. Plane tickets, I'm trying to remember. I'll put in the number if I can find it, but I probably pay between $2,000 and $3,000 for plane tickets, and I'll talk more about that later, but there's a group flight package you can purchase. I'll get into details about that. That was definitely probably one of the more expensive things was the flights. But so the $7,000 cost, that pays for your every place you stay. It pays for about 70% of your meals. It pays for all your in-ground transportation, a lot of day trips you take, a lot of activities you go on. And I just want to preface this by saying when I was on the trip, when we were going from place to place, I really realized that if I was going off and doing all this on my own, there was absolutely no way I could have seen all that and done all that for as cheap. Really, it's a fantastic opportunity. The price is nothing for the amount of stuff you get to see, I would say. And also, that was another thing about me going as a freshman. So going on the spring semester and going as a freshman living in a dorm, I was able to cancel my dorm contract with no fees. And then I also wasn't paying for a meal plan anyways. So a lot of that $7,000 cost, you know, when you go on vacation and you're gone for 2 weeks, you still have to pay your rent for the entire month, even if you weren't in your apartment for those 2 weeks. But with this, I got to replace my normal fees. So it definitely helped bring the cost down some. And I also had scholarships from high school that I was able to use, and the support of my parents, which was really nice. Thanks, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this. But yeah, and there's also scholarships that you can apply for through UGA. So I wasn't eligible to apply for any of these because being a freshman, I didn't have a UGA GPA, but fortunately I did have scholarship money from high school that I'd won that I was able to apply for the trip. So now about the fun spring break details. So if you're going on the spring semester trip, you are going to be, you're going to get a full week for spring break, which is so nice. Another thing about the trip is that you don't have weekends. So every single day you're on, which is amazing because you're seeing so many wonderful things, but by the time spring break comes, you're definitely gonna want that week. So you can really do whatever you want. So the group flight package, unless you change it and make yours customized, it's gonna take you to Sydney first. But what I did was, I'd say about 2/3 of us, about 20 of us, we went to the Gold Coast. So we flew into Sydney and then we made a connecting flight to the Gold Coast for spring break, and we rented an Airbnb there and stayed there. That was amazing. Some people stayed in Sydney, which is also a great choice. I love Sydney. Some of the girls that went on our trip, they stayed in Sydney for a few days and then they went to Bali and then they flew back. So really you can go wherever you want. If you want to go to another island, if you want to go to Fiji, even though you're going there later, you can go there. You can go to the Samoa Islands. There's so many places you can go. Really, anything that's feasible is fair game for the week. And the Gold Coast, I liked. I'm glad it was kind of a nice, relaxing week. I needed that. Like, I needed a week to kind of regain some energy, so I'm glad I did that. Gold Coast wasn't like my favorite place in Australia. Like, maybe if I had to go and do it again, I would have just stayed in Sydney, because Sydney's amazing and I don't think you get enough time there, because you would need months to have enough time in Sydney. I think it was one of my favorite cities to go to. But yeah, that was just my personal experience. So another thing, like I was saying earlier, how there's no way you can do this trip on your own for as cheap. Another thing great about doing this through study abroad is that you don't have to plan the whole thing. And I think that's really easy to forget about how stressful every activity we do. If you had to plan that on your own, how stressful that would be for you to have to plan it all and call every hotel and make every reservation and get yourself from place to place. There's just so much stress removed from going as a student. Basically, you sign up. If you get to go on the program, you prepare what they tell you to, you get what you need to get, you pack what you need to pack, you do whatever they tell you to do as far as schoolwork goes, and then you can just hop on a plane and go, and everything's already prepared for you. So that's another amazing thing about going and doing this on a study abroad trip, is that it just takes so much stress off of you. And you know, if something happens with a flight cancellation or something happens with your hotel, you don't have to deal with that. Whoever's in charge of the program, they're going to deal with all that, and you just get to kind of go along for the ride, which is really fun, and it makes the whole trip a lot less stressful for you. So this is a travel-based trip, but there's all sorts of different types of study abroad trips, such as being a transfer student, where you would primarily stay in one city and one location on one campus, but you know, you could still choose to travel all over a country, or if you're in Europe, you could go over Europe. But it's definitely a different type of atmosphere as being a transfer student and having an apartment and staying one place and living out of a suitcase and moving every 3 to 4 days. So you should definitely keep that in mind when you're deciding whether or not you want to go on this program. You should really think about yourself and whether or not that's the best fit for you, and if you enjoy it. That was one of the largest reasons why I chose to go on this trip. Was, you know, I just got out of high school, I'd lived in the same town my whole life, and I just wanted to see as many things as possible, and I really wanted to see what it would be like just to live so transiently. And that's what appealed to me so much, is, you know, we spend most of our lives every day getting up and doing the same routine, and if you get to go somewhere different, you might be on vacation for a few weeks, but then you're going to return to your normal life, you know. So to be able to go for so long and just move every day and explore, and to be kind of free from responsibility besides just showing up and doing your schoolwork and all that, that was really amazing. So this trip really is so amazing. Through the people you get to meet and the beautiful places you go. So I started taking 1 second every day on this trip, and I mean, I could have had a good 5 seconds for every day, and they would have been some sort of nature scenery that was absolutely beautiful. The amount of stuff you get to see is just absolutely incredible. But with all the good things aside, I also just want to mention one of the things that was hardest for me personally, just because I want to be honest with you, or, you know, if this could help you make your decision. I would say one of the hardest things for me was being around 30 people all the time for 2.5 months. I'm very independent, so that could definitely be hard for me at times. I was pretty good about knowing when was a good time for me to go socialize, and then the nights where I was like, okay, like I need to take some alone time and be quieter, and that's fine. Everyone respects that a lot, but I just wanted to put that out there, that it was definitely, it could be a lot sometimes. So you definitely need to know yourself and be able to monitor yourself, and, you know, realize that it's okay, that you don't have to be with everyone all the time, and that you can go take some alone time if that's what you need. But everyone on my trip was absolutely amazing. There was not a person that I didn't like. Everyone was so adventurous and fun, and there's also a subgroup, you know, like a sub-friend group that you make. No one was cliquey or anything, but everyone obviously had their closer friends that they made, and I loved all those people. I miss them. I still see some of them that go to UGA, but they were absolutely amazing. Oh, and also another thing about the first week, if you're going on the trip, the first week is stressful, just because you're meeting everyone and you're getting to know everyone, and you're not sure who's your group yet, or who's the people that you really fit in and that are going to be close friends with. And obviously, if you're going on the trip and you're nervous before, that's totally normal. I was completely nervous, and like the first week can be a little hard because you don't know everyone, so you don't quite feel at home yet with everyone. So I would definitely say give it time, and that it's totally normal, and that, you know, you're not the only one that feels that way, and that that's totally fine. So now for a little more info about how the flight works. So basically, they're gonna provide you with a group flight package you can purchase through a third party. Definitely purchase this package. It makes it so easy when you're traveling throughout the trip. Makes it easy for y'all to get in and out of the airport as a group. But so the flight package they're going to send you can also customize. So basically, it's going to start once you're in Hawaii. It's going to take you from Hawaii to New Zealand. It's not going to get you out to Hawaii. You need to do that on your own. And the reason why is it doesn't make sense for them to fly everyone out of Atlanta if you're from Chicago, and that makes sense for you to fly out of there. So you can add that into the package if you want to customize it that way. I went down a few days early with my parents, so we just went down on our own. But the group flights, they do start once you get to Hawaii. And also, for spring break, they're gonna take you automatically into Sydney unless you decide beforehand you want to change it. Most people don't decide what they're going to do for spring break until you're on the trip, like we decided in Hawaii. So if you don't know any better, I would just leave it for Sydney. But if you know you want to stay in New Zealand for longer, or if you just already know now what you want to do, then you can change that. Because like I said, we went to the Gold Coast, but we all already had a flight to Sydney, so we flew to Sydney and then to the Gold Coast, when really, like, if we would have known before, it would have made more sense just to go straight to the Gold Coast from Australia in the first place. That's just something to keep in mind. And then the last group flight, it's going to take you back from Fiji to LAX. And if you want, you can customize the add-on back to Atlanta. I didn't. I spent the night in LA, so I spent one night in LA. And then I came back on my own, so that's just what I did. So during the trip, there's all sorts of different types of accommodations you stay in, so it could really vary. We stayed in hotels, just your typical hotel. We stayed in hostels some. They were all clean hostels. We stayed in like a little house a few times. In the more rural areas, you would stay in something that was more like a cabin or more campy. So when you go out to Doubtful Sound, you're going to stay in kind of a cabin. And Lady Elliot Island, you're going to be on these little kind of huts almost. Everywhere you stay, like when you're in a city, you're going to be in a hotel or a hostel, and then rural areas, it'll make sense regardless of where you are. Everywhere you stay is adequate, but definitely if you're someone who is super weirded out about having to like have your own personal space and just be you, and you could vary from having 2 roommates or just you and someone else to having 6 people at a time. So definitely if you're easygoing about that stuff, or if you go in knowing that's what you're expecting, and you can be easygoing about it, I would definitely say that's the best mindset to have. And yeah, so like I said, they would vary, and whenever we would get to a nice location that we'd be staying in for a few days, everyone would be so excited. They'd be like, oh, like this is, just nice to kind of relax. And then sometimes you'd be together with 6 girls, and then you would, go somewhere else, and then it would just be you and someone else, and then it would be kind of nice to have your own little space or whatever. But then it's also so much fun being with everyone because you really get to be bonded. But yeah, and I think I roomed with almost everyone over the trip. There were, about the makeup, there were about 8 boys and 22 girls, I think. So the guys obviously were together a lot more, or roomed together a lot more, because there were only 8 of them to be rotated. But with the girls, you were still rotated. And that was great because you just get to, it makes you closer with certain people, and you really feel like you get to build a personal connection with everyone there. So now we're going to talk a little bit, that's my cat, sorry. We're going to talk a little bit about how school works, the reason we're there anyways. Sometimes you forget about that, but that's important. So they say the program's about 70% in the field, 30% in the classroom, and that's about right, and it depends. So that's one of the really fun parts about the trip, is that our entire ecology class was almost outside, and you're in the New Zealand, and you're walking around, and you're like, oh, this is, you're finding a plant out in nature, and you're like, oh, this is what this plant is, and this is what that is. So that's really cool. You get that experiential learning, and it kind of depends. So sometimes we would be outside almost all the time, and then there'd be a few days where you'd be inside in the classroom more, but it was a pretty good variation, and you really are outside a lot. That's one of the fun parts about the trip, is being out in nature. Also, off topic, but you do a lot of hiking, so just be aware of that. You do a lot of hiking. It's amazing, so many beautiful views, but if you're going on the trip, maybe you should work out a little bit before. Just a little tip from me. Okay. But anyways, other things about how school works. So normally, in normal college, you might be given a project or an assignment, and it's due a week or 2 from now. With Discover Abroad, you're basically going to be given like a day or 2 to do something, but you're only ever going to have 1 or 2 assignments at a time. So you might be given a topic for some presentation or whatever, and you might be reporting on it later that night or the next day, but you would have all day to go do it. So the workload is totally manageable. I would say just do what you're supposed to do. Nothing crazy. They're not going to throw anything crazy at you. So you do a variety. We do a lot of modules, so like 250-word essays about various topics. We make like a final video at the end. We make one at the beginning to introduce ourselves, and we watch a few intro videos, and then you make a video at the end for one of your final projects. That's also on my YouTube. You can watch that. And then we also do these real world debate things. So we would be talking about issues, normally one for a different country. And you would be assigned a perspective and you would get to prepare your argument. And those were always really fun to do. And a lot of times we would be debating things that were actually happening and like going on in the real world. So that's fun. That makes you more informed. And you also care so much you actually care about the assignments you're doing most of the time because, if you're talking about preserving the Great Barrier Reef, you get to go out and snorkel and scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef, and you get to see how beautiful it is, and you really get to experience just how amazing and magical the whole world is. So it really makes you care a lot more about it, I would say. So overall the trip is focused on sustainability. So the spring semester is all sustainability. The May mesters and the June mesters, they are focused on sustainability too, but like I know for May mesters, there's different breakdowns. I think there's one on like animal behavior. There's a few different like topic areas that you can pick, but the overarching theme is sustainability. I'll talk a little bit about the types of credits you get. So for most of like the June mester and the May mester, you're gonna get 6 credits, I believe. So you'll get 2 classes, and you can find more specific info on the Discover Abroad website. I'll link that below. But for my spring semester program, I had 14 credits. So I had anthropology, comparative politics, geography, and ecology. And ecology was 4 credits. That's my cat. And then, so all that together was 13 credits, and then you have the option to take PE, and I'm a freshman, I still need a PE credit, so I did take that, and that was amazing because you didn't really have to do, other than like filling out, kind of reflecting on your personal health a little bit, you didn't have to do any extra work. You're already doing all the hiking regardless, and you do a good bit of hiking and physical activity or fun different, you get to go canoeing or kayaking, so that was kind of nice because you were already doing all that stuff anyways, and it was also a credit. So like I said, I had 14 hours, and the spring semester trip is shorter than an actual semester. So an actual semester is around 4 months, and the spring semester is about 2.5, or the Discover Abroad trip's about 2.5, which it evens out because you're on like all day, and you also don't get weekends except for your spring break. So it makes sense that it would be shorter, but it's still amazing that in 2.5 months you still get to get basically a full-time amount of working hours. And now, hey sweetheart, all my pets make it into this video, okay? But yeah, okay, so like I said, for most transfer students, the credits are pass-fail, but if you're a UGA student, you do, if you get an A in the class, that goes in your GPA. If you get a B, that goes in your GPA, whatever. I'm a Terry student, so basically I got all of my upper level electives, and that was another nice thing about going as a freshman, is that I got all 4 classes I would need anyways. But like I know for a lot of juniors, obviously they didn't know they were going on this trip, so they already had some of their upper level electives, so maybe they're taking all the classes, but maybe only 2 really even helped them at all. So that was the nice thing about going early. So as a Terry student, I got pretty much all 4 of those upper level electives, whatever they're called. So if you're a UGA student, and depending on what your major is, you should go to DegreeWorks, and you should go to What If, and you should type in the codes for each class, so like anthropology 4271 or something, and then you should go to What If and see what type of credits that would give you. And if you're a transfer student and you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say DegreeWorks, maybe you guys have that too, I don't know. Is that just a UGA thing? I don't know. Anyways, just talk to your advisors if you have questions about that. So I would definitely say you're going to get out of this trip whatever you put in terms of effort. So I know Discover Abroad started interviewing applicants for certain programs because they're tired of people going on the trip who don't care and are just going to have a good time, and being childish or disrespectful. And I don't want to say that like you shouldn't go if you want to have a good time, because obviously you're gonna have an amazing time, but there's definitely a balance between like doing your work and showing up to class, and then going out and doing fun things. And they're not there to bait, everyone on the program, your professors and the people kind of there to help guide you, like no one's babying you. Everyone, like they'll tell you, fun places to go out in the city and fun things to do, because that's what you're there to do. You're there to explore and you're there to see new things around the world. But they definitely want people who are mature and who actually care at least somewhat about, sustainability, or just like learning about the world in general, instead of just there purely to goof off. So like I said, it's an amazingly incredible and fun trip, but definitely just balance fun and doing work, and just kind of stay on top of your work, and if you don't get behind or anything like that, you're gonna have an amazing time. So yeah, so just, okay, this is a little extra just about some of the fun things that you do on the trip, and like I said, some of this is listed on the website, but I'm just gonna list some of the things that came off the top of my head that I think were really fun. So when you go out to Lady Elliot Island, you get to snorkel on the Great Barrier Reef. You get to snorkel a lot. You get to snorkel when the sun rises. That's like an amazing time for snorkeling. You get to see so many sea turtles and stingrays and like little reef sharks and stuff like that. You also have the opportunity to scuba dive. I did go scuba diving. That was incredible. I didn't realize how much I was gonna love it. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do it at all, and then I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I absolutely love scuba diving. So when you're off the coast of Kaikoura in New Zealand, you get to go swimming with wild dolphins, completely wild dolphins, and there's a ton of them, and it's incredible. What else? When you're in Queenstown, it's a very kind of like a touristy town, but like an athletic-y kind of touristy town. So there's so many people went skydiving, parasailing, paragliding. What else did they do? I got to go kayaking. I almost went, so yeah, we have a free afternoon there. I almost went horseback riding through the Lord of the Rings set, but unfortunately it was filled. But yeah, that's an option. You should look into that type of stuff. Super fun. When you're in Fiji, we got to stay in like an actual village with Fijian people, which was just like absolutely incredible, once in a lifetime opportunity, and just to get to learn more about a way of life and about a different culture. And it was fun being there too, because you're with people who don't live at all like how Americans live, but you still get to see how fulfilled they are and how amazing their life is, and you're not viewing them like, oh, poor them, or they need our help, or they need us to teach them things. Like, no, we learned so much from them. It was absolutely incredible. We also got to snorkel in Fiji, which I didn't even realize Fiji had a reef, but it does. It's beautiful. We got to see a lot of cool things there. In Hawaii, you get to go to Mauna Kea on the Big Island, and Mauna Kea, from at its peak, it's like the tallest mountain in the world, but if you measured the mountain from the very top to like the bottom of the ocean floor, so like relative, but that's still amazing. You get to see the sunset up there. Oh, we got to be in Sydney. We were in Sydney around the time of my birthday, so that was really fun. We had a free afternoon there. I got to go to Bondi Beach, which was incredible. It looked just how I thought the pictures looked. There were a ton of people on the beach, and there's that big pool that overlooks the ocean. And there's also like a skate park there, and we were watching people skate, and they were incredible. And it was just so fun and vibrant, and there were so many people. When we were in Sydney, they were also having their huge LGBT Mardi Gras celebration around the beginning of March. So we got to go to the parade, and that was incredible, and the entire city was just lit up for that. And it was amazing. So yeah, this trip, there's so many once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. I have so many pictures, and I saw so many things, I met so many people, and I'll look back at them and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. But it's really wonderful and an amazing opportunity, and if you're able to go, you should most definitely do it. Also, other random little tip, definitely pack light. So they're going to provide you with a list of what you need to bring. That list is pretty good, pretty inclusive of everything you need. If you're questioning if you need something or not, then don't take it, because you don't realize how little you need or how annoying lugging a bunch of stuff around is until you have to physically repack it and move it in a suitcase every 3 to 4 days. It gets so annoying. And I did a pretty good job of packing light. And even still, I was like, oh, I'm so tired of carrying this crap. So definitely try and pack as light as you can. And also, if you're a girl, little tip, one-piece bathing suits double as great bodysuits for going out. Like if you want to wear them with like a skirt or a pair of jeans or something. That's just my little PSA about packing light. So I hope this trip was able to answer a lot of questions. I'm sure I forgot something that I meant to mention, and then I'm not going to remember. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them. Also, if you're on the UGA campus, we have Discover Abroad ambassadors, actually, that go to study abroad fairs, and sometimes they'll be sitting outside Tate. I'm not one, but I know people who are, wonderful people from my trip who are ambassadors. So feel free to ask them questions, but if you can't find them, or if you don't go to UGA, feel free to comment below and I'll try to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like I said, comment below if you have any questions, and if you really made it to the end of this video and watched the whole thing, then you're a trooper. And go dogs. And if you're going on the trip, or if you're thinking about going on it and you end up actually going, just enjoy it. Take so many pictures and videos and just go into it with a positive mindset. It's going to be one of the best experiences of your entire life.